Township, Montgomery County Board of Trustees to order. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Mr. Berry?
Here.
Mr. Culp?
Here.
All right, thank everybody for coming this evening. We will get this meeting started. There's a number of items on the agenda. We start every meeting with a reading of the casualties. Mr. Berry.
Sergeant Leandro Yasso, Operation Freedom Sentinel, November 24, 2018. 25 of Leavenworth, Washington, assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 75th Regiment, Joint Base Lewis McChord, Washington.
Captain Stegemeyer.
Good evening, Board. The following is a list of the first responder casualties for the period of November 29th through December the 10th. Deputy United States Marshal Chase S. White, 41, United States Department of Justice, United States Marshal Service. End of watch, November 29, 2018. Firefighter Christopher Roy, 36, Worcester Fire Department, Worcester, Massachusetts. End of watch, December 9, 2018. And finally, K-9 Bain, 2, Tulare Police Department, California. End of watch, December 10, 2018.
Thank you. We honor those no longer with us with a moment of silence. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Now move into new business, department reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to present tonight, and I'm open if anybody has any questions. If not, I will turn it over to Captain Stegemeyer.
Good evening again, Board. On behalf of the Police Department, I have nothing new to report, but I'm available for any questions if you have them.
Captain Stegemeyer, I would like to thank you for another very complete report. Under the administrative items, we continue to have followers on the Township Police Department Facebook page, as well as the Township's page itself and our Twitter accounts. So I'd encourage those in the audience and those listening or watching on YouTube, please follow us on social media. That's the best way to stay informed. So thank you for that report.
Mr. Dan Mayberry, Public Works.
Good evening, Board. I do not have any formal items tonight, but are there any questions for Public Works?
Not
Thank you.
Mr. Chris Snyder, Community Development.
Good evening, Board. I do not have any formal items outside of a public hearing. I did want to update you, excuse me, on the Lions Road Pedestrian Improvement Project. We are working to wrap up the work that's being conducted in the right-of-way so that we can get the lanes opened up prior to Christmas, and those lanes will remain open until after the Christmas holiday, and then we'll start up again on some of the work in the spring on the main part of the path improvements. But they'll be doing some work over the winter outside of the areas where they need to be in the roadway itself. So outside of that, I'd be happy to take any questions, but we do have a public hearing a little bit later.
Notice, in addition to those pedestrian improvements, there's been a lot of lot improvements in terms of the parking lot in the old Southland 75. In anticipation, I know that Get Air trampoline park is coming. Do we have any idea when that park is slated to open?
I know that they've been working inside. I don't have an exact date.
I believe in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I believe they are getting close though. But they have been doing quite a bit of work on the shopping center to get everything prepared. So,
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Kyle Hinkleman, Community Development and IT.
Thank you. I have two items for the board this evening, Resolution 111 and 112. They are our annual reappointments for members on our boards. First board is the Board of Zoning Appeals, where you will see there is a resolution requesting that Mr. John Brose be reappointed to the board through 2023. Mr. Brose has been an active member on our board since 2013. Unfortunately, as you will also just wanted to be noted, we did lose a member on our Board of Zoning Appeals this year. Mr. Poor passed away in the spring, and we have not had an additional member fill that board at this time. Currently, we have 4 members on our Board of Zoning Appeals, which means we have a absence of a regular member and an alternate member on that board. As for the Zoning Commission, currently, Ms. Karen Kresh is on the commission. She's been on the commission since 2002. Her term is set to expire at the end of this year. She has asked to resign from her position on the board and not be renewed. She has served this township for 16 years, and we are very grateful for her service. But with that, we are requesting that the alternate, Mr. Kurt Hasher, be approved as the regular member to replace Ms. Kresh as in full-time capacity with a term ending December 31st, 2023. That will mean that I'm not asking for a replacement of our alternate this year. So on our zoning commission, we will have an alternate position available as well. If anyone is interested or knows of anyone interested and lives in the unincorporated portion of Miami Township, all they would have to do is send something to our office, a letter of interest and a resume. We'd love to have them on our boards. Thank you.
Can you offer a little more detail on the type of background maybe necessary? You ask for a resume. Is there something specific that we're looking for? Is there a...
Sure. So we have no requirement on a skill level for a member of our board. Some communities obviously require that somebody be an architect or an engineer. We have no specific requirements. We do want to see that somebody is interested in being involved in a meeting once a month. It is a volunteer position. So the Board of Zoning Appeals is code-based, is very code-based, which is much more black and white in terms of reading the code and interpreting it. The Zoning Commission is a little more gray in terms of being able to use some emotion in their decision-making. But again, we ask for a letter of interest and a resume just to have an understanding of somebody's full package of what they could provide to be part of the board.
Excellent. Our wonderful Public Affairs Director, Ms. Jill Drury, is in the audience. I would ask Jill, maybe if you could get with the Dayton Daily News. I see Nick is here today, and Mr. Blizzard, and if we guys can get the word out that we're looking for applicants for those 2 boards, that would be great.
Nothing else, sir? Turn it back over to you.
How about Mr. McCord?
I guess I will talk to Mr. McCord, our Finance Director.
Good evening, Board. I have 2 housekeeping items for you tonight. The first is a request to authorize the Montgomery County Auditor to convey tax advances from collected property tax collections, to go ahead and advance those to the township for cash flow purposes. I've asked for a monthly allocation if it's in excess of a certain dollar amount. And the second item is a requirement from ORC just to authorize the continued operations of the township for calendar year 2019. And with that, those are the only two items I have for you tonight.
If no one else has any questions for Mr. McCord, I will now turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you. We will now open the public comments period of the meeting. If you're here to comment on the zoning case, which will be opened in a full public hearing, you need not come forward at this time. There'll be a public comments section of the actual zoning hearing itself. But if you'd like to address the board on any other topic, now would be the time to come forward. Mr.
I have Casey Fife.
Casey Fife. Come right up to the mic and make sure the red button is up, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for seeing me. I am a community member and a teacher at Jane Chance Elementary, so I look forward to sharing my experience with my third graders coming up. I'm here as a parent foremost. We got some notices about recreational apparatuses in our tree lawns, and that the ordinance was that they needed to be removed 10 feet from the street. And many of our homes, at least in villages in Miami, are on a downward slope. Mine personally, it's probably about a 30-degree slope, so moving our hoop up 10 feet isn't really possible, along with many of our neighbors. So I just wanted to come forward and see if we could maybe find some sort of an alternate resolution, pulling them back in the winter months, when snow plows may be coming through and there aren't as many children outside, and then maybe allowing them to be out in the warmer months. As a parent and a teacher of young children, I would hate to see an opportunity for them to be outside playing, be taken away over something that's not really in our control. That's all.
Thank you for your thoughts. We'll give you some comments back from the administration.
Mr. President, if I could just address a couple of things. I know since the first roads went in, kids have played in the streets. We as a board and we as a township cannot give permission for kids to play in streets, but it happens. Everybody understands that. If neighbors have issues with the kids playing in the street, they call us. I don't know how many times when I worked for the city of Miamisburg, hey, go talk to the kids. Hey, don't jump out in front of the cars. Stay out of the way. This issue with the basketball goals and athletic apparatuses has really been a long time coming. And it's just not our jurisdiction that has issues. I know the city of Miamisburg, when I was there, we had lots of issues. And it has to do mostly with these quote unquote portable basketball goals. Not giving anybody permission to break the law, but in reality, as you made a comment, the issue really isn't in the summertime unless somebody complains about it. The issue is in the wintertime when plows can't get around them or plows are catching them because the drivers are working 16 plus hours a day plowing your streets and they're paying attention to the cars and they don't catch or they don't see that basketball goal because either it's snowing or it's the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they're catching these things. I don't think a lot of people are going to complain, and I'm going to go back, throw that asterisk back out there. We can't give anybody permission to break the law, but I don't think anybody's going to complain that in the middle of the winter, if you get this off the right-of-way where it's not an issue for the plows and anybody else, garbage trucks, things like that, and then in the summertime, if you put it out there and the kids are playing and you move it, as I said, these are portable. Unless somebody complains to us, we're not going to be going out there looking for them. Currently, we're helping Public Works getting the message out. The last board gave us direction with our property maintenance code to work on this issue. It's taken into this board to get this property maintenance code, and the police department is helping Public Works since they're collecting all these leaves right now, and my officers on midnights to have them while they're just patrolling the neighborhoods. It gets them a chance to get out on foot. They're making the notifications. And again, it's public awareness right now. I understand kids are going to play in the street. Hell, I did. I used to play street hockey all the time. Busted lip numerous times. But again, it's the problem. The biggest problem is in the wintertime or when the larger trucks have to get down these streets. And as I said, they're portable. They're not meant to be put in one spot for 15, 20 years. I've seen where people have taken the gorilla basketball thing and cemented them in the tree lawn. I called it the lawn curb, and cemented them in there, which is a public right of way. That's not what that is meant to be. I don't see people complaining. As I said, Public Works is not going to be going out, oh yeah, they got better things to do, fix the roads and all this other stuff. The police department has better things to do. But we want to get this out right now as a service to everybody. Hey, look, this is a violation of this section. There needs to be some solutions to this. So as I said, I don't think there's going to be a lot of issues in the summertime. But if you're not going to, or the kids are not going to use it for 2 months or a month in the summertime, if you're going to be on vacation, move it out of the right of way. Get it back into your yard, driveway. Most of these, if you look at the basketball goals, they say they're portable. They talk about having it in your yard. They talk about having it in your driveway. They don't talk about having it in the street. So it goes back to that issue. It's in a public right of way. This is what the section says of the ORC. And we're just right now trying to get the warning out to everybody. Going back to, we're not going to go look for it in the summertime. So.
Mr. Mayberry, can you comment on some damage that has been done to our plows in the past and the cost incurred by the township?
Yes, this past winter, we had 2 snow plows on the same day that were damaged. The rearview mirror frame hit the goal rim that was extending out beyond the roadway and caused about $9,000 in damages to the 2 trucks. We've also had, in the summertime, our street sweeper has contacted goal rims and has either damaged the rim itself, or there's been minor scrape damage to our street sweeper, but we've also had damages in the past throughout the spring, summer, and fall months, because sometimes we do need to get near that edge of pavement, and if the rim is overhanging the roadway, we may or may not notice it, contact it, but the bigger problems are the goals that are moved completely out in the roadway, and we have to travel around, out and around them just to get the job done. So key here is portable. Days or weeks or years, months on end is not being portable. They're stationary at that point. So that would be my emphasis, is portability. That's what they're meant for.
Thank you, sir.
Aaron, any other public comments?
I do not have any additional.
Does anybody else wish to address the board tonight? All right, I will close the public comment hearing. Oh, we have one more. Sir, please come forward.
In the same situation, this is regarding the...
Please state your name and address
Yes,
for the record.
Is this...
Buttons up.
If it's buttons up, you're on.
I think I'm on. Okay, so my name is Garrett Sudomac. I'm also a homeowner over in my Villages of Miami over here, and along the same line. And I just wondering if I could just have a little clarification as to the difference between a portable goalpost and a tree in the tree lawn. Are we having problems running into these things as well? Is this an issue that needs to be addressed? You know, mailboxes are right on the right of way, trees are in the right of way, cars are in the right of way, and cars are easier to avoid. I get in the dark in the winter and those things, but trees that are maybe overhanging the branches as well over the roads. And road signs are close to the edge, and I guess I'm just trying to get some clarification as to what the, you know, we don't want to hang over the road. Is a rim hanging over the grass okay? Is that as long as it's not extending beyond the road, or beyond the edge of the curb, is that something that's going to be deemed okay, or are we going to look at those kind of things as well? And that was just clarification that I'd like to get on some of those issues there. That makes sense to everybody?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
I would just go back to what the chief and as acting administrator pointed out. This board and the chief of police are in no position to allow anyone to not follow the rules and regulations of the township. And the current ordinance states that there shall not be a basketball goal in that right-of-way. That's really the point of clarification, is whether or not and how strictly that is enforced. You know, you can speak to any police officer and say, well, technically 36 is exceeding the speed limit of 35. Will they pull you over? Not likely. So we're looking to provide, as best we can, advice to say, if you can work with us, then we can work with you. But the law is what the law is. Anything else, Chief?
No, and most mailboxes don't hang over the road. No sign hangs over the road. Trees eventually grow over, but if you look, as an example, down Benner Road, or you go down Central Avenue in Miamisburg, as the trucks go by, the tree goes like this now. But this law specifically says sporting apparatus. And there are regulations for signs. There's regulations for mailboxes on where they can be. And not to say, well, how about this, and not to use, I'll use the word nitpick about everything. This law talks about basketball goals in particular. As I said, if somebody has one there and it's portable during the summer, and as you said, it doesn't hang over the road, and the kids play with it, and then when they're done, if they're going to be gone for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, move it back out of the right-of-way. We're not going to go out looking for basketball goal violations unless it becomes a problem. It's similar to a lot of other things. My officers, employees have other bigger issues to deal with than this until it becomes a problem where somebody calls us about it. When somebody calls us about it, it now becomes a problem. We're not going to go there and say, okay, here's your citation. We're going to go there and say, hey, can you move this back? Now, if every day or every week we're coming back saying, hey, move it back, move it back, move it back, yeah, eventually we're going to say, here's your citation. But again, we're here to work with everybody, not just to make it uncomfortable, but this is there not only in our community, but in a lot of the communities because it became a problem. So we're here to work with everybody. We're here to, and again, as I said, when I was a young kid, we played in the streets. And I've had friends get hit by cars because they're stupid and they run out in front of a car, or they ride their bicycle. There's inherent danger when you play in the street. Now, I know cul-de-sacs, my cul-de-sac has 1,000 kids, I think, play in it. And it's great because they all get together and play. But going back to it, we're here to just work with you. Sir.
Thank you. We will consider votes and resolutions.
Make a motion, we approve resolution number 111-2018, a resolution to reappoint a Board of Zoning Appeals member. Therefore be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees reappoints John Brose to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals as regular member for a 5-year term ending December 31st, 2023.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
No, sir.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 112-2018, a resolution to appoint a zoning commission regular member. Therefore be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees appoints Kurt Hatcher to serve on the zoning commission for a term of 5 years ending on December 31, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye. I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 113-2018, resolution to request tax advances from the Montgomery County Auditor in fiscal year 2019. Therefore be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees request the Montgomery County Auditor pay monthly advances to Miami Township of collected taxes during 2019. And be it further resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees authorizes the Finance Director to complete the necessary paperwork.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I make a motion, we approve resolution number 114-2018, a resolution to authorize continued operations in calendar year 2019. Therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of Miami Township, Montgomery County, Ohio, authorizes continued operations for all departments to operate under the enacted management program for calendar year 2019.
I'll second. Any discussion?
No, sir.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I will now make a motion to open the public hearing for zoning case 434-18.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Zoning case 434-18 is now open. The following will be the order in which this hearing will proceed. Staff will give a report, and the applicant will be given an opportunity to speak. Any proponents and/or opponents will have an opportunity to speak. The board will review and vote on the findings of fact for this case. The board will close the public hearing and make a motion on the resolution concerning this case. The board will now hear the report from the staff. Mr. Hinkleman, have all the legal requirements for this hearing been met, and do you have a recommendation from the Montgomery County Planning Commission?
They have, and I do.
Will you present your report at this time?
Thank you. For the record, the case before you is ZC 343-18, a zoning map amendment to the area known as the Dayton Wright Brothers Airport. I do have a recommendation from the Montgomery County Planning Commission, which I will read into the record. It states, please be advised that on November 8th, 2018, the Montgomery County Planning Commission approved zoning case 343-18 in Miami Township. Sincerely, Larry Wiseman, Principal Planner. So with that, the case before you this evening is a zoning map amendment as well as a final development plan and preliminary development plan for a new plan development which covers the area also known as the Dayton Wright Brothers Airport. The location of the airport, if you're not familiar, is located on the southeast corner of Austin and Springboro Pike. The request is to rezone 6 parcels that are currently zoned AP, Airport District, into a planned development district, a PD5, and create a set of standards, development standards, and a preliminary development plan for the future development of the site. Again, the 6 parcels that you will see encompass the entire portion of land that is owned by the airport in Miami Township. There is a portion of land that is not in Miami Township that is part of the airport, that is south of the Montgomery County, Warren County line. You will see also within your packet in the development standards, we are recommending that we break the area into 3 sections. Section 1 being the primary airport section, Section 2 being the office and other development section, and then Section 3, future development of the airport or warehousing, industrial manufacturing location for the airport. As I said as well, we are requesting adoption of a preliminary development plan for the airport, which shows future development of the sites as stated. The preliminary development plan that is being requested is a copy of the airport, the ALP, the airport layout plan that was approved by the FAA. So this plan, preliminary development plan, would allow the airport to evolve towards that ALP as they have funding and have partners or development, private development that wants to develop the sites that they show or want to build new hangars or other facilities for the airport in the future. It does not include, I just want to be clear in terms of the portion, it does not include the area north of Austin Boulevard, which is the clear zone, and it does not include that portion in Warren County that is still part of the airport, but again, not in the township. So again, this is just to show you the ALP or the preliminary development plan with the sectioning off of the area. As part of this, the preliminary development plan allows for future growth for sections 2 and 3 with different development standards, which we'll talk about here in a moment, but then gives flexibility to section 1, which is the generally considered the airport proper. Again, currently under the AP zoning district, there are very few regulations. The intention of this rezoning is to create a set of development standards that are robust and clear for future development, as well as the redevelopment of any areas on the airport property. I will also note that as part of this, they are asking for a final development plan. Really, this is to set a baseline for all the existing buildings. So they are not asking for the approval of any new buildings at this time. The final development plan is meant to set the buildings as they sit today. So all buildings that are on site today would be approved under this final development plan, and any changes to those buildings in the future would require modification or approval through our zoning commission and board of trustees. And I would like to note as well, as part of the final development plan, there are certain parts of the entire development, which includes the development standards and final development plan, which are clearly exempted due to FAA required things. So this would be lights, certain lights and runway necessities for the ability for them to meet their FAA requirements for safety and other requirements that come down for the use of the airport. So to get into the development standards, I won't go through every part of this, but the intention of the development standards as a whole are to transition this property, which for years has been used in a utilitarian purpose. It's been used as an airport. As everyone is aware, when Austin Landing went in, the design changes in the area, the improvements we've made to the other areas in the township. The township has a different set of expectations for building materials and design. The airport obviously is the older style. And this allows the airport to continue to evolve towards the new development standards that we have consistently throughout the township, which include building materials, lighting, landscaping, buffers, those types of things, which are now common throughout the remaining part of the township. This allows the airport property to kind of come into those changes as well. So again, there are different uses allowed on each of those three sections we talked about. I guess section 1 is the airport, so it is the intent to allow aviation-related uses. Area 2 is the area that was to the north and the south of the main airport portion. It's the part that currently has Connor Group, as well as some vacant land to the south. There is some land available on the south, which the applicant is proposing the permission to have a ground sign. That ground sign would be similar to the signage that is in the Dayton Mall area, where you would have a company of some sort put in an electronic message center with some other design elements that are associated with it under our advertising section of our code. So they are proposing that in Area 2, which again would be on the southern side of their site. And then finally, Area 3, this is the primary development area. So it is meant, again, as an industrial and business park area, which would allow specific uses. It would not be intended to have it continue on a retail focus or to have public services in that. It would really be intended as an economic and employment driver, or as additional airport facilities are needed in those locations. Just to touch really quickly on the other standards as well. As I said, there is one outdoor advertising sign that is being proposed in Area 2 on the south side. Currently, the AP district requires no landscaping or very, very little landscaping or buffers, for that matter. With the change in the code, now the landscaping would be required to meet our general requirements for Article 45A, which is our landscape code, which would allow additional trees and different buffering. Again, with the exception of the FAA requirements for getting in the way of planes or other safety issues. Same with lighting. It would put new lighting standards, which don't exist today, on all buildings. So it would require LED lights, down lighting, as well as other requirements on the lighting. Again, with exemptions being for FAA requirements. And then again, it would also require Article 7, which is our site design and materials section of our code, to be in place for all future buildings. So again, this would allow them to come into conformance with building material requirements and other facade requirements that we would require anywhere else in the township. It does allow, and I will note this because we have a spaceship there, it does allow for unique design styles as well, not just what we would require generally in the township, which is brick or stone with a very simple palette. It does allow there to be flexibility for the Zoning Commission and the Board of Trustees to approve unique architectural styles, which is to say that we would allow the continuation of additional buildings that are unique in nature with metal and glass and things like that, that are of higher quality and again are consistent with other buildings in that location. So with that said, you have 5 findings of fact. I will quickly review those 5 findings of fact just so you can understand the staff's position on them. The first findings of fact deals with accessibility and roads. The applicant is not requesting any changes currently to any roadway network. In the future, it is very likely there will be roadways that will be necessary in Area 3 to get to the future development, but they are not proposing any roadways at this time, so they are not asking for any of those. Any of those changes that come forward would be required to get a final development plan to be reviewed by the Zoning Commission and the Board of Trustees. Number 2, the proposed development or development standards adequately address issues related to compatibility with adjacent uses, as well as environmental issues. and do so in a manner that improves upon what could be achieved under the non-PD zoning standards. I say this to say that the current standards, the AP district, are very open. They would allow very little regulation in terms of landscaping, lighting, design. The current standards obviously do not allow as open of a development pattern. So we believe that the proposed development standards will bring this, will improve this greatly in terms of a design, in terms of all those other components for this development. And then again, the areas in terms of environment, all future development, if a building were to go in at any location, it would be required to get a final development plan, which would go before our zoning commission and this board. And through that process would be reviewed by Montgomery County Engineering for stormwater, or if there are wetlands there are other processes that they would have to go through to mitigate those wetlands if they were permitted to do so. The proposed development or development standards contend to produce a superior design. So again, I just noted that. Again, we believe that these development standards will bring this site into more conformity with other locations in the township and allow for a product in the future to be more consistent with other development that we've done. There are very little, as I said, conditions currently or regulations currently, and this would put a substantial number to bring them up to consistency with other locations. D, the proposal is in accordance with and goals with policies with the comprehensive plan. Currently, the comprehensive plan calls for this location to be an airport or airport uses, which are designated to support and continue operations of the Dayton-Wright-Butler Airport. Clearly, this does that. It also calls for urban design standards, which, again, as we spoke to, clearly does that. And it also calls for utilizing the Dayton-Wright-Brothers Airport for both new businesses and community events. Although our standards do not call out Runway Fest, that is something that came out of the airport's growth, which is a community event, as well as utilizing Dayton Airport for new businesses. There's an entire section 3 of this development, which the airport is proposing to be used for new businesses at some point in time, although not now. It is anticipated by laying the groundwork that they could potentially get businesses in that location. So we do believe it meets that. That is in accordance with our comprehensive plan as well. And then finally, and I will stop talking, the condition imposed mitigate any potential significant impacts associated with the proposal, including maintaining a 100-foot distance from businesses or manufacturing structures to residential buildings. So the plan does not show any locations within 100 feet. It does not, they would have to come back before this board for a final development plan to allow that to occur. With that said, staff is asking that as part of your approval this evening, that you modify the zoning commission recommendation to add a condition which would modify the development standards, just to be clear and state that no business or manufacturing structure may be constructed within 100 feet of any primary residential building. Again, we believe the standards currently address that, but we want to be crystal clear in the future when a building comes forward that the expectation is that that is not within 100 feet. With that said, I know I went through a whole lot of items and I did it fairly quickly. If there are any questions that you have of me, I'd be more than happy to address items on the development standards, on the uses, on any component of this. But there are also the applicant or representative of the applicant is here, can certainly speak to any questions that you may have of him.
What year was the airport constructed? Approximately?
1953 is what I'm being told.
So pretty much everything in and around the airport, almost everything, was built after the airport was there.
Correct.
Thank you. Board will now hear from the applicant. Did you have any questions, Mr. Colt?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
On the billboard, could you be specific about where that goes, who wants it, and what's going to be, who's going to own that?
So I can be as specific as to tell you that the location of it, as for who the airport chooses to put there, I can't tell you exactly who they're going to pick. I know there are multiple people who do what that is. There are very few. It is very likely that it would be one of two people. But on section 2, if you see here, The section to your left would be where they are proposing. So if you look there, this part is where they would be proposing, which you can't see in your monitor, but the lower part too.
The southern section?
Correct.
Going down here.
So it's just a general advertising billboard?
No, I mean, it would be an electronic message center similar to what Lamar and Key Ads have done on the north side, by the township.
Same kind of ads that we see on I-75 or?
In terms of the ads, it would be dependent as we do, it would fall under our advertising sign standard, which we don't control the content of the sign. We would control the design. So
I might drive down to DLN once in a while with my kid and there's Cheeks and Diamonds ad rolling right next to the airport.
the answer is we don't regulate content. So what I can say is we regulate the other components of it, the height, the size, the location, the setback. We require it. I can tell you exactly. It says we require that the sign clearly has a number of items that deal with it can't exceed a certain square footage, setback, height, pixel resolution are allowed. We also require that it states that it's the Dayton Wright Brothers Airport. We require that it states it's in Miami Township. And the sign does allow for advertising that states Key Ads.
I would note in this particular case, the sign would be sitting on a publicly owned property and would be controlled under the auspices of the lease with the city of Dayton. So
Right.
it's our understanding that there will be some controls in place on some of those issues. So, but through the lease that the city would ultimately enforce with it.
Right. The private lease can control things that our standards cannot.
Any other questions? Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hinkleman. Board will now hear from the applicant.
Good evening. I'm Mike Cross. I'm with Environmental and Engineering with the Dayton International Airport, City of Dayton. I want to thank the board for entertaining this rezoning and also the partnership and hard work that Mr. Snyder and Mr. Hinkleman, and I know I can't speak as loud and project my voice as yours, but we do support this. We do appreciate the opportunity to both work with the township, develop this partnership. We understand the need not to compete with the additional development that's around the airport. We have worked long and hard with the FAA, with the township, with members of the community to come up with a future airport plan, our airport layout plan that was approved by the FAA. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the ALP or the airport.
See none. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The board will now hear from any proponents, supporters of the plan. A time limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each speaker. Anyone want to come forward in support of this plan? Please state your name and address for the record.
Stephen C. Winters, 2611 Pinnerel Road. If you look at number 2 south, across the street, there's residential neighborhood. I own those houses right there. There's 7 of them. It goes from West Tech down to Jubilee, and then past Jubilee to Pennyroyal. I'm a proponent of this. However, I didn't know about the sign. The sign would probably go right in front of one of my residents. So I think if you look up E on the last page, reference to the 100 feet, I think I'd be within the 100 feet. But what I'm asking is, I think he kind of pushed me to go ahead and maybe rezone my property that's in Miami Township and also Clear Creek. And the only thing I'm asking for is since you're doing this, which I agree, I think it's very progressive and I think it's going to be very nice if the board will assist me because I don't think that's conducive to my residents right now for the lights and everything and the sign especially. But maybe we could meet with either Mr. Snyder or Hinkleman to see if I can get my properties right there by number 2 across the street to be zoned conducive to what you guys are doing to help myself out too, because I don't think I'll have tenants there with all the lighting and all the activity that's going on across the street. It's those 7 houses it's an island. I mean, I've got commercial all around me. It's a total of about 36 acres I own with another gentleman right there. So I think it's kind of timing for me. It's good timing to probably sit down with the board and other people to try to get mine rezoned also.
Thank you, sir. Any other proponents of the plan wish to come forward? Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
It's Roy Smith, 11205 Springboro Pike. And the plan that I see looks great. Appreciate you guys considering it. Couple of points that I'd like to make, or at least ask you guys to pay attention to before the total approval on it. One would be the stormwater runoff, that all stormwater is retained on premises from the development that's being proposed, which I'm sure the engineers already provided for that. The other would be the lighting, and I'm sure that FAA they're falling under the guidelines of FAA for all the traffic that's the airport traffic or the airplane traffic. I'd like to get a better description or see a description of what type buildings that they're looking to construct out there. And with my experience, it's been the more specific as to what the buildings are going to be, or what type construction, and if it adheres to the Austin Pike. That's a beautiful site up there, so I'm sure they do well there. I think with the increase in traffic that this development will bring, also would be required to get a go light. Some people refer to them as stoplights. I call them go lights because if they're not there, you got a lot of traffic jams. There's a lot of traffic on that highway, morning, evening. There is a traffic jam out there, and a traffic signal between the two existing there at West Tech and Pennyroyal would probably be necessary in order for their increased traffic to be able to get in and out of the airport development and be able to go south on 741 especially. So with that said, we'd be in support of getting the development approved as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other proponents of the plan wishing to come forward? All right, the board will now hear from any opponents of the plan. You will have a time limit of 3 minutes. Please come forward, state your name and address for the board. Seeing none, the Board of Trustees is required under Article 31, Section 3104 of the Miami Township Zoning Resolution to make a specific findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at this hearing. The board will now determine each of the required standards under Article 31, Section 3104. Will the fiscal officer please read and record each of the findings of fact for the record?
The site will be accessible from public roads that are adequate to carry the traffic that will be imposed upon them by the proposed development. or the proposed development standards where only the proposed uses and development standards are to be adopted and provides for pedestrian accessibility and connectivity through the design. Mr. Morris,
Aye.
I believe it's true or false?
True.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Berry,
You sure about that? Is it true?
We have traditionally done true or false.
Okay.
If you would like yay or nay, we certainly.
Just want to make
in
sure
the
we don't have to go
affirmative
through,
or in
I
the
don't want to make sure we
negative
don't have to
is
do it twice. True.
Mr. Culp.
True.
The proposed development and/or development standards adequately address issues related to compatibility and adjacent uses, environmental issues, and overall design compatibility, including lighting and landscaping, to do so in a manner that improves upon what would be achieved under the non-PD zoning standards. Mr. Morse.
True.
Mr. Berry.
True.
Mr. Culp.
True.
The proposed development and/or development standards are intended to produce a superior design and construction than what would normally occur under the non-PD zoning standards. Mr. Morris.
True.
Mr. Berry.
True.
Mr. Culp.
True.
The proposal is in accordance with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Mr. Morris.
True.
Mr. Berry.
True.
Mr. Culp.
True.
The conditions and pros mitigate and any potential significant impacts associated with the proposal, including maintaining a minimum 100-foot distance from the business or manufacturing structure to a residential building outside of the planned development district, and will not cause an undue burden on public services and facilities, including but not limited to fire and police protection. Mr. Morris.
True.
Mr. Berry.
True.
Mr. Culp.
True.
I move to close the public hearing for zoning case number, where is it, 434-18, and find that all of the required standards have been met by the evidence presented during this public hearing.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Culp.
Aye.
I make a motion we approve resolution number 115-2018, resolution to adopt zoning map amendment preliminary and final development plan for the airport plan development under zoning case number 434-18 for land zone PD5 plan mixed use district. Therefore be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees approves the zoning map amendment and preliminary and final development plans under zoning case number 434-18 and upholds the zoning commission recommendation.
Actually, I believe we're modifying the zoning recommendation to make sure that we include the no business or manufacturing structure may be constructed within 100 feet of a primary residential building.
Correct.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Culp.
Aye.
All right, that ends the public hearing. We will now move to elected officials' comments. Mr. Berry.
I have nothing this evening.
Mr. Culp.
I have none.
I would just like to remind the audience and those listening that we have moved the date of our next scheduled board meeting up. It was originally scheduled for December 25th. Most of us are occupied with Christmas on that day. So we will be meeting next Tuesday, the 18th. At that time, Chief, if we could get a report from the fire department. I did not see that included in the other department reports.
You must have got this because I forwarded it on to them to put in this. I will forward it to you first.
Thank you very much. I have nothing else. Mr. Newell.
What would the same time on the meeting on Tuesday?
10 o'clock.
Or it was just Tuesday, is it 10 o'clock?
10 a.m., correct?
Okay,
Yeah, 10
it
a.m.
wasn't stated, so I just want to make
It's
sure.
not at night, it's not.
Okay.
Next Tuesday at 10 a.m. we have this meeting? I don't know that I knew that. I'll have to check my calendar. So, thank you. Well, maybe I'll be here. You'll see me at 10 a.m. next Tuesday. Mr. Newell, do you have anything else?
Nothing else.
We have no study session or no executive session. I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 6:54. Thank you all for coming.